Welcome back. I'm Maggie, the host of the Neighbors Helping Neighbors podcast from Father Joe's Villages. This is a continuing series where we explore homelessness, its causes, and solutions to the issue. Our guests include experts and leaders in the space, folks with lived experience and unique perspectives on homelessness. To learn more about our mission, please visit neighbor.org and follow us on social media at Father Joe's Villages. Today we're focusing on outreach to our unhoused neighbors and the impact of the Neil Good Day Center, which Father Joe's Villages operates. For those experiencing homelessness, this is often the first stop on their journey. To explore this subject with me are Paul D'Alessio, spearheading our coordinated services, Paul Scheck, guiding our operations at Neil Good Day Center, both esteemed representatives of Father Joe's Villages. With me always is my co-host, Deacon Jim, the president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages. A warm welcome to each of you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
It's good to
here.
have you with us.
Let's start with some introductions with who you are and the scope of your work at Father Joe's.
Okay, my name is Paul Scheck. I'm with the Neil Good Day Center. I oversee the day-to-day operations.
Wonderful. How long have you been with Father Joe's?
13 years.
Wow.
All right.
Great.
Great.
And I'm Paul D'Alessio. We love Paul's at Father Joe's
Yeah.
Villages. St. Vincent de Paul. And I'm a social worker. I work at the day center with Paul here, and then also in our outreach, our assessment center, and then case management in our Paul Mirabile Center, and then over at Golden Hall.
Wonderful.
And how long have you been with us?
I've been with us 23 years. I usually say I started in January to keep myself looking young, but January of 2001.
23.
23 years.
Great. 23 and 13 years. Cumulatively, you guys have a lot of years with us.
Yes, a lot of
great.
experience.
A lot of experience. And I'm Deacon Jim, as Maggie mentioned, and I lead this great organization. I'm blessed to lead this great organization. In addition to the outreach efforts that we'll be discussing today, especially at the Neil Good Day Center, we also have our federally qualified health center, right? And all the work the good work that happens there, not only within the brick and mortar and not only primary care, but also behavioral health. We have our behavioral health clinic. We have mental health clinicians therein, as well as our dental clinic, right? We also have our street health, and our street health is meeting people where they are. We know that about a third of the population out there won't access medicine in a traditional way, brick and mortar. And so we go out to where they are, and we bind wounds and we dispense medication, whatever it takes, right? So there's a lot of work that happens there. Medication-assisted treatment, speaking of medication, right? And weaning people off of substances, that's very important. Then we love our children, and we have our therapeutic child care center. Our kids come to us. They're late in many ways. And so the work that happens there is transformational for these kids. And we help break that cycle of homelessness for them. And in addition to that, we have an employment center, our education and employment center. Again, with employment comes income and then comes self-sufficiency. So that's absolutely very, very critical. And then Paul, you know our shelter system more than anyone else, right? And you know how crucial that is, the 1,000 beds we make available each and every single night, thanks to people like you and your teams. And so that's getting people off the streets in the immediacy and trying to start helping them stay off the streets permanently. That's what it's about. And then we also develop housing, right? And that's, at the end of the day, that's what breaks the cycle of homelessness, housing, such as St. Teresa of Calcutta Villa. And so that's what we, to round it all out, it's the comprehensiveness and the holisticness of our programs that makes a difference in keeping people, not only taking them off the streets, but keeping them off the streets. So it's all absolutely critical.
Well, let's get right into it. Tell me about the basics of the Neil Good Day Center. Where is it? How long have you been operating?
We're located at 299 17th Street. I have been operating it for the last 8 years, since November of 2015. What we do there is we provide basic humanitarian services to give people a hand up out of homelessness. Those services include mail, showers, restrooms, respite, phone charging, storage, case management. We're also an entry point for the shelter system, and we run an outreach team out of there as well.
Well, that's a lot that goes on in that place.
There's a lot. Yeah. What kind of need are you seeing in the area, and how does that correspond with the purpose of the day center?
It's an ever-growing need. People need a place to be, a place to go. If you're going to get out of homelessness, you need to be able to have a shower. You need to have mail to provide you with the documents you need. Sometimes it's just a place to be, so you're not out causing trouble in the community. And so,
What are you seeing, Paul?
We're seeing the need right now is for choice with a lot of our clients. There is shelter available from emergency shelter, but a choice to go into a lower barrier shelter for people that have a lot of barriers and need. And then also shelters that are employment focused. We have a lot of people that show up that are looking for work, that are looking to be clean and sober, whether they're in recovery or don't want to be around drugs and alcohol, especially families, and would like a shelter focused on sobriety, and not one that requires you to go to classes or to be locked down for a certain period. Those are definitely needed. And from the day center, we get a lot of clients into recovery, but just that choice across the board. And I think that's one of the things the day center does best is it invites people in. As Paul said, we believe that humanitarian services are a human right, just as housing is a human right. And both of those things we focus on at the day center. We provide humanitarian services to get people into housing. When clients come in to look for showers, which everybody wants, they get their mail. It not only is a link to housing, but it provides us an opportunity to talk to them about housing if that's not their focus already. Paul was telling me a story this morning about a client that he's working on. A gentleman that's been around for a couple weeks, and as Paul mentioned, a lot of the clients that we see would be out on the street, and some of them have higher mental health barriers, some of them have higher addiction barriers, and so there's behaviors you see of people walking in circles, yelling. They can come do that at the day center. We run a safe facility. We have an incredible security department that is solution focused and uses motivational interviewing when somebody's accelerating, and they can really decompress a situation. But when clients need to come and just even walk in circles for a while, they can come to our courtyard and they can do that. And Paul's working with a client right now that is going through that.
Yeah, he definitely has mental health barriers and behaviors that if you saw him outside, you would consider it unusual. And just today, I've been kind of checking him out. And just today, he looked at me and said, "Hey, how are you doing today?"
Oh,
And
wow.
I said, "Okay, this is it right
That's
here.
great.
This is a
Yes.
breakthrough."
That's
And
great.
so in the next few
Yeah.
days, I expect to continue, breaking through, and we'll talk about it. And eventually the conversation will come around to housing. That's my goal. So.
I
Wow.
love it. I now want to hear more as these days progress. So let me know how you do with him,
I
right?
will.
But it's just what pops into my mind is the word dignity. You're treating him with the dignity that he deserves, right? And so eventually you break through, and there's a response there. I love that. I love that. And it's but Paul, you were saying about it's a holistic approach, but it isn't a one size fits all, right? And if people are at different places in their journey out of homelessness, I like to say, and you have to meet them where they are, right? And you're right, the diversity of applications, the diversity of shelters that we'll need, because someone may want a sober living environment, others may not be able to be in a sober. So just meeting people where they are. This is what we do best, and that's why it's the effectiveness there. It's great.
I want to talk about the services and not just that, but the significance of these services. You mentioned a couple of them. Can you walk us through the services and the impact that they have on folks?
Well, mail, for instance, like I mentioned to you, it's very important because it can keep them in touch with their family and friends, but also you need documentation for housing. You don't just go and they hand you keys and you move in. You need Social Security, you need driver's license, you need this, you need that. And those things are not going to be delivered to you on the street. So you can come to us, set up a mailbox, it's free, and get all those documents there. So that's a very important service. If you're working, some people pick their checks up there. So they get them mailed to them. The laundry, super important because you're not going to do your clothes on the street either. And if you're going to go for a job interview, if you're going to start your day, if you're going to go to work, I mean, we all had a shower before we came in today, right? So it's important that we offer this to clients as well. And I have seen the transformation with certain clients that may be agitated, having a really rough time, and they go in, they take a hot shower, and they come out, and they're literally a different person after something like that. So that's a very important service. Storage is important because these documents that I'm talking about are frequently lost on the street. So it's a story I hear every day. So they can put that in a safe and secure spot. Our case manager is like a triage type of situation. She has a caseload, but it's not, she's generally handling things that happen in the now. So, for instance, we had a client today. He's in really bad shape. He's in a wheelchair. He has a rubber wheel that's falling off. And so we decided, we've been watching you. It's time to get you into some kind of skilled nursing facility or something like that. So I just say, Angie, you need to go and take care of this for me. And we're in the process right now of he's agreed to go into assisted living. So all we need to do now is bring the person in, confirm what he needs to get in, and hopefully by the time I get back, he's in.
That's great. That's great. Paul, you mentioned receiving checks, employment checks in the mail there at the day center.
Yes.
I want to talk about that a little bit because some people listening may think to themselves, well, wait a minute, if this person has employment, what are they doing going to the day center? Why don't they get their mail in their own home? Right. And right. So when we talk about that.
Okay. If I'm going down the right path, it's because it's too expensive in the money that they make. Even people on a fixed income too, they receive their checks there, but they are unable to afford a place of their own. So they're living on the street.
Right. That's right. It's expensive to live here, right? An average rental here is about $2,500, and the rental vacancy rate is very low, about 3%. It's out of the means of a lot of people, and now with increasing inflation, you're seeing more people fall onto the streets as well, and that's the key. And I wanted us I wanted you to mention that because some people may be wondering, wait a minute, if this person is employed, why don't they have an apartment then, right? Not that easy.
Yeah, it's a 2-income city for sure.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people can end up on the street too. A spouse passes away or
That's right.
or something like that. So
That's right.
that's how they end up there.
And on top of that, also, when we were closed on the weekends recently, a lot of clients were coming to us saying, hey, I'm working all week. It's very difficult for me to come on the weekends. And so Paul would make special accommodations for them. But we also see clients that have moved into housing that choose to get their mail still at the day center because they're not comfortable yet getting their mail in their apartment. And so the day center forms as an incredible transitional place for when clients get housing, they can ease into it. They were used to living on the streets. They're used to taking advantage of services like the day center. And for a while, they'll get their mail there because they don't trust their new place yet. And it gives us an opportunity also at the day center to have those conversations to motivate them to stay in the apartments where they are, to stay in housing. And eventually they'll transition completely over to housing. But they're comfortable with us and they're comfortable getting their mail with us. And eventually they'll be comfortable in their housing.
That's right.
With some continued support.
That's right.
I just want to say that the mail is where a lot of things start because we do like 3,000 mail pickups a month. So that gives us an opportunity to have people come up and we get to call them by name, and then you see them and they start to gain trust in you. And that's where the rapport building starts. A lot of times is in the mail. There's a lot of important functions that it does.
Building relationship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned your wonderful security team. I had the pleasure of speaking with one of your security officers, and he told me about safe sleeping at the day center or day sleeping at the day center. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we have a hill outside, and they can also lay down inside the day center as well. And the reason for that is it's not safe on the street, Maggie. You know that. So rather than risk being attacked, they'll walk around all night. And and then come into the day center once we open in the morning and sleep there at night. There's been times that we have had clients that come in that we're not able to find shelter for. We know that they're not going to do well on the street. So we'll tell them, walk around, stay awake, and then you can come in here tomorrow. We'll submit your name, and then you can sleep. And
That's
it's
really
a better
powerful.
option.
Yeah.
Especially for women,
Yes.
right? Because I hear the stories, the horror stories of women being accosted on the streets, right? At all hours of the day, but particularly at night. And that's terrifying.
Absolutely.
Right.
Another one of the services that I read about was respite services. And that was profound to me because I saw it described as giving our clients a legal place to be. Can you say more about what that means for the community we serve?
Sure. So a lot of times you'll see in the media when there's a lot of people outside on the streets, the call is to have a day center. That we need a day center for people to have a place to be during the day. And then when there's a lot of people in the day center, the call is usually, oh, we need to shut down this day center. There's a lot of people hanging around, which we know is not true in our day center, that we're working with them towards housing. So right now, especially with the camping bans, there's no legal place for somebody to be outside. And day centers have always served a dual nature, the social service nature, which is what we're focused on, which is providing humanitarian services while giving a hand up out of homelessness. Services that really attract our clients inside. One of those is respite, that safe place to stay during the day, or just a place to decompress after being outside and trying to find places and to be safe, because the day center is a safe place. What's good for the community, the second part of a day center, is that it gives people that place to be during the day, so they're not forced to be in front of businesses or using business bathrooms as showers, or constantly using the bathrooms. We have actually 2 sites with bathrooms that are funded through our day center, and so it's an incredible place to go, incredible and clean, and it gives people that legal place to sit, to be, to rest, to feel safe while engaging in housing.
Yeah, it really stood out to me, just kind of putting myself in their shoes in a sense and imagining feeling unwanted and unwelcome everywhere I went, at the park, at the grocery store, at the coffee shop. But that's not the case at the day center. They're welcome there. They can hang out, they can decompress, they can charge their phone, call their family members, call their case manager, and have that safe place to be.
Right. And connect to shelter, right? So what about that, Paul?
And that goes a long way, what you just said, Maggie. Actually, one of the clients we're working with right now at the day center, he was outside for a long time and would be at the day center daily. And we finally got him to housing. He was housed for a while, was working locally, actually, and then became homeless again. Some barriers came up in his life and he became homeless again. But the place that he felt safe going to was the day center. So while he was going through some of his barriers, some of his demons, he would come to the day center and sit with us and just be with us during the day. And eventually, as those demons and those barriers subsided a bit with us, he was able to get back into housing and back into employment. And so it's not only a safe place for people to come and just be during the day, but even when people fall down, which we all do, it's a place to come back to and get a second chance because you feel safe and welcome there.
Right.
That we're not going to judge you when after, even the case managers work very hard to get somebody into housing and it doesn't work out, we'll come back and we're going to try again. Right. Because a lot of our staff have been there. And so we understand what it is to fall down. And we understand what it is to need a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. And so the day center is that place for the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
So
Right.
On and
364 days a year.
And then shelter, clients come every single day to look for shelter. We're the biggest homeless provider for shelter in San Diego. And so they identify Father Joe's Villages, St. Vincent de Paul, with providing that shelter and permanent housing. And so if somebody's interested in permanent housing, they'll come to us. If somebody's interested in shelter, they'll come to us. And so every single morning, we have shelter referrals from the day center. We take in an extra step. We have an assessment center that's stationed at the day center that does shelter diversion conversations. So every time somebody comes and looks for shelter with us, we try to divert them away from the system. We work with the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. We have 2 certified trainers in shelter diversion at the village. They actually both work at the day center. And so we train all of our staff on shelter diversion conversations, but our assessors are the people that are really good at it.
And
So-
diverting them to
Yeah.
our Paul.
Can you say what that means?
So there's 4 different, this is from the training.
Okay.
There's 4 outcomes that come to with diversion training. So the number 1 outcome that we see from the day center is getting people back to family and friends. San Diego is a wonderful destination. The majority of people that are homeless in San Diego are from San Diego, but we do have people come to San Diego from out of state usually that don't expect San Diego prices. So they might come from Mississippi, or they might come from North Dakota, and they'll say, oh, I was paying $300 for a house in North Dakota. I'll probably have to pay $500 for a house on the beach in San Diego. And you say, well, we can get you an Airbnb somewhere in San Diego for one night for $500, but it's not going to be on the beach. And so they come to the day center, and that's a theme throughout San Diego. Go to the day center. They'll get off the Greyhound bus. They'll realize that it's too expensive. They'll come to the day center, and we're able to work with them and get them back to a safe place with family and friends. We also have had several clients. Paul had one recently that come to the day center because they're sent there by outreach or by the law enforcement or by a variety of sources. They come to the day center and they're told, oh, you need shelter. And we sit down with them again. We're not just going to refer them right to shelter. We sit down with them and start a conversation and find out that they actually have housing in a nursing home.
Oh.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I can tell that story. There was a gentleman that came in, and they directed him to the shelter space, and he went in, and I just noticed him because he looked like he was scared. He was an older gentleman, really, really tall. And so I kept kind of watching him, and then finally he was like sitting out in the day room, and he was staring and with big eyes. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go talk to this gentleman. So I brought him into my office, and we began to talk, and I could tell he had a little confusion and some things like that. And as we went along, I found out that he actually had a place. He was actually staying in a nursing facility. They had dropped him off for a doctor's appointment, and he couldn't remember how to get back. So, and he had no idea what to do. So somebody told him go to the day center, and he thought he was following the right things. And we were able to make a phone call and get him out of there in like 20 minutes after. But those are the kind of things that happen daily at the day center. Just unusual situations that we're there for.
So it's not a matter of just putting them into shelter, the shelter system, as you say. And I've heard you say before that of those every day who go to a day center, only 10% of them get into the shelter system anyway, because it's just not enough capacity.
Not enough capacity. And so that's why shelter diversion is so important.
Right.
And that's why, as you mentioned, building more housing is so important. So we can get people out of the shelters and into housing also.
Right.
You also have an outreach team. Tell us about your team and what they do.
The outreach team actually works in the neighborhood of the day center, and they take care of the clients. There's a lot of clients that live in and around the day center. Also, they work inside the day center, so I like to call it in reach. And they are busy making contact with clients, because being that so many people do come there, there's kind of a wealth of people, and you don't have to go out and find them because they're there. So they're busy making contact, identifying the needs of the people, and trying to take care of that for them.
And the motto of our outreach team is to reach the hardest to reach. And so when we have a new outreach worker, we say to them, if you come to me and say, I have 100 successes this month, I'll ask you, are you working with the right people? Because the clients that we're working with, it might take a year to get them off the streets, to build rapport with them, and then motivate them into housing. And so our teams are really focused on what we used to call diamond clients, but they didn't like that one, so they changed it to club clients. And so they have certain club clients. And the motto is, services are mandatory for the staff, but voluntary for the clients. So it's voluntary to have outreach and case management for the clients, but it's mandatory that the staff engage them and provide those services. And so they build rapport with them sometimes over years. We had one of our biggest successes was a client who was considered the mayor of 17th Street. And she was outside for over 20 years. And she was, she would come into the day center. She would engage with us regularly. She was actually, a very pleasant person most of the time. But you didn't want to mess with her. And so age was really creeping up on her. And so she started talking to us about housing. We finally got to work in about housing. We tried to get her into shelter. She would accept some shelter. We find that a lot of people will accept things like inclement shelter, which we provide at Father Joe's Villages. We're the biggest provider of that in San Diego also. And she eventually started talking about housing. And so we got her on some lists for housing. She wouldn't go into shelter, but she was very specific. I want to live within 2 blocks of the day center. I want to be right here all the time. That was her community. Part of poverty is that your community is local, and your survival is reliant on that community. And so you're not going to go far. Unfortunately for us, she was matched to something in North County, brand new apartment.
Wow.
And as you mentioned, Deacon, there's so many solutions to homelessness, and that's what's the difficulty in solving it too, because our clients are all unique. And so one solution is not going to work. Right. From a middle class perspective, a new place, brand new apartment, in a nice part of town, and new furniture, and it's brand new. You get a key and you get to be there.
Right.
That is wonderful. That's the solution. That's homelessness. I'd move in there in a second from a middle class perspective. But when you're reliant for 20 years and surviving in one spot, you're not going to take that.
It's hard.
And so we were obligated to present that to her, and she was obligated to fire us. And really, why would I move there? And then was matched again to a place near Mesa College. And we thought, okay, that's a lot closer.
Right.
We'll get her out there. We'll introduce her to the community and things like that. Fired again. And so we had to re-engage. And again, re-engage with her. And finally, we got her a place right near us, downtown there. And she was able to move in, and she's been very successful. She said, and again, working with people to what to expect.
Right.
Yeah.
Because after being 20 years on the street, what do you expect inside? And so it's not only about just giving somebody a voucher, but working with somebody to say, okay, this is what to expect when you move in. You can't have a lot of people come see you. You can't have a lot of people in your apartment. Your belongings, you really have to watch out for, to limit your belongings. And she was really great. She said, you know what? I'm going to have a Super Bowl party every year where people are going to come to. But other than that, nobody's coming to my apartment. And so she was great, and she's still stably housed.
She's
Wonderful.
prospering. But that's great. I'm glad you told that story because it puts things into perspective. I mean, I think in general, people don't understand that, right? And why wouldn't she accept an apartment in North County? Or why not in La Mesa? And yet people have to understand that these individuals, just like all of us, right? We have our preferences, right? We have community, as you say, after 20 years, there's community. And so there's so much that play here. It can't be just as simple, there's an apartment, and that's the end of it.
What would you say to somebody who might be perceiving these services as maybe enabling our neighbors who are living around the day center? How would you help them deepen their perspective?
I'd say we really know the difference between charity and social work. I'm a social worker out of SDSU. Go Aztecs. Never been to a game, but I really like SDSU. And so the difference between charity and social work is that charity is needed sometimes. In storms or emergencies, people need charity, and we do some charity also. But ours is mainly social work. That we focus on change. That all of the services we offer at the day center, as we said, the showers, the mail, the laundry, are to give people humanitarian services, but also draws them in so we can talk about change. Even with harm reduction isn't about just giving out Narcan and fentanyl test strips. Harm reduction is about change. It's about talking to people about change. And if you just do one part of it, you're not truly doing harm reduction. If you just do one part and give things out, you're not truly doing social work. And so when clients come to us, we engage them not only with the humanitarian services, but the housing services that come along with that. And the perspective on homelessness usually is various, as we just talked about. that there's so many solutions needed because our clients have such variety in their needs. Anything from a quick trip back home because they have a place to years of engagement because they have a long trauma history. And when we have volunteers that come to us, they usually have that stereotype in their head of what somebody looks like that is homeless. And when they meet somebody, they always say, "Oh, this person's an exception. Oh, the next person's an exception, and the next person is an exception." And they realize that all of our clients are exceptional.
That's right.
That every one of them is exceptional, and that humanitarian part of it comes in. And when they learn the history, usually of a lot of our clients, especially the trauma history, we mentioned women and the danger that they're in on the streets, then they really learn and say, "Wow, I wouldn't even have survived, nonetheless, just be homeless if I had gone through what you've gone through."
Right.
And so giving the day center again is about giving that second chance, third chance, fourth chance, but it's always focused on social work and it's always focused on housing. And social work is really hard. And so our staff down there work very hard to keep that focus.
And by providing these services, we're able to bring about that change through events that we hold, recovery events. Through every week, we have, usually twice a week, we have the EES program that you mentioned before. They come down, set up a table. They will actually do resumes right on the spot and set it up so that the client has a place to receive a phone call about a job or something like that. At the recovery events, they're very well attended. We have speakers from all different modalities of recovery. So we're not just focused on one. We want people to have a choice so that it's not so easy to go, "Oh, I don't like that."
What is that event called? It has a
It's
powerful
called
name.
Are You Done?
Are You Done Yet?
Yeah.
That's right.
And there's been times when I've seen as many as 5 or 6 people leave those events and leave with the providers that come in, going to their different recovery programs. So if we're not drawing people into these events, then people are never going to get to them.
And the partnerships are important that you point
Very
to, Paul.
important.
We have a lot of partnerships, and those who are able to get into recovery, what a victory that is, huh?
Yeah.
And that's a start. And we know it's a lifelong struggle, right, for those who have had addictions, but that's a lifelong struggle. And it's perceptions. You talk about perceptions. I'll share a perception that I had when I first arrived, and I've been with Father Joe's Villages about 10 years. And that's when I was hit with the fact that people wouldn't come off the streets because there's some shelters, not ours, but there's some shelters that don't accept pets, right? I mean, we are very welcoming to shelters, and I learned why, right? Because people will stay on the streets if they can't bring along their animal. And I have to tell you, that struck me as very odd. When I first arrived, I said, "What is wrong with these people? I mean, they're going to stay on the streets just because they can't bring in their animal." And I quickly came to recognize the importance of that. And for some of them, especially the trauma that they've had in their lives and the disappointments and the abandonments. And yet this animal is the only thing that has stayed true and blue throughout the entire, something along the lines of, I mean, so there's so many perceptions. That was my perception when I first arrived, right? And there's so many other perceptions that are out there that would be that people feel, well, this is odd. Why would and that's what you don't know until you walk in another person's shoes, in a sense, right? You don't know what's gone on there and the reasons why. And that's why meeting them when they are, right? And then working at that place with them and helping them. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, such a non-judgmental, accepting space that you all provide. It's wonderful.
I think that's the most important thing that we do is provide that non-judgmental space, because it allows a ton of people to come in. They feel welcome. They know that nobody's going to be looking down on them. And so they come in, and they can come in, and then that's where we can start building those relationships with them, because they do feel welcome and they don't really have any place to go. You mentioned going places and being kind of shunned and discarded. And that doesn't happen where we're at.
So you're creating this welcoming, safe space for our neighbors every day, but also in crisis situations, right? Like COVID and the Hep A outbreak. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. During COVID, we were one of the few places that stayed open. We went into social distancing.
Place.
Yeah. They opened the convention center. We provided the mail for the convention center.
Wow.
Yeah, the mail line was crazy. During the Hep A, we were a center because so many people visit the day center on a daily basis. They came in, the county health nurses, and set up vaccination tables right there.
Wow.
And we did vaccination events for the public. So and we're available in any upcoming crises as well.
Right.
We just make ourselves open to things like that.
Mhm.
There's a lot that goes on in that place. It's quite obvious. You just mentioned vaccinations. It occurs to me that our own federally qualified health center also provides services, outreach type services at the day center as well.
Yes,
Mm.
they do. And not only do they stop by on their own, but if we have a serious case of somebody that needs to be treated, we can
Mhm.
call them and they'll come up
And they'll come out.
in the
Yeah.
street health van. Yeah,
And that's great.
that's a great.
It's a
service
great, I
to have.
mean, because again, connecting them to those types of services, primary care, behavioral health, whatever it is, it's absolutely key. Even dental care, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of times clients won't go to the doctor, so to be able to have them to come up after
Mm.
we speak with them and they finally agree, that could be life-saving,
It can.
actually.
Yeah, it's really great. Really great.
I'd like to switch gears a little bit. Deacon Jim, if you could talk about the funding for the day center and how Father Joe's makes it work.
Well, the funding, the good portion of the funding comes from our relationship with the city and the City Housing Commission. So we receive a level of funding from them, and I'm appreciative. I'm always appreciative of that. And then we have funding philanthropically because if the gap has to be filled, the funding that we receive from the city and in most of our programs, it's not in its entirety. It's not 100%, right? So that's where philanthropy comes in. I mean, the reality is that across the board in our organization, philanthropy is the biggest portion of our of the dollars that we have in order to provide services and programs, right? So the day center is yet another one. So again, it is city funded and then supplemented by philanthropy.
And as the CEO of Father Joe's, why was that important to you to fund the day center to make sure that it keeps its doors open and the services are provided?
To provide the gap funding, to provide the philanthropic portion,
Mhm.
because of everything that Paul and Paul just have shared with us. I mean, think about it. You have to. I listen to them. I always gain an appreciation and respect for the work that they do at the day center there. It's incredible. I mean, there's so many aspects that we didn't even get to today. I mean,
Right.
because there's so much that happens at the day center, and a lot of it
Mhm.
it's at the spur of the moment. A lot of it is, oh, we haven't been doing it, but let's do it now. It's that type of thing because again, if the need is there, you're there to meet that need. And so because of that, it's important. I mean, when the team came to me and said, "Well, Deacon, the city will fund this amount, but we have a gap," right?
Mm.
And they said, "Are we willing to fill that gap?" My response was absolutely. I mean, number one, the need is there, and number two, we need to be the provider providing these services because of people like Paul and Paul. You see the passion that they have for the work that they do, right? And their teams as well.
Deacon kind of touched on his why. What's your why, Paul and Paul? Why do you love the day center? What do you see for the future of the day center?
Well, I hope it continues, that's for sure. But I love the day center because of the kind of work that we do. It's never the same thing twice. A lot of times it's an emergency. It's just it's a great place. And then we see whose lives we help change. And they show up with a set of keys and they go, "Hey, I got my apartment."
I love that.
I just there's so many things, so many reasons, but I'm
So
gonna
many
say that.
miracles happening there every day.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. How about you, Paul?
As Deacon mentioned, Father Joe's Villages, we have the whole gamut from street outreach to permanent housing, and recognizing that everybody's going to need different support to get out of homelessness. The day center is the foundation of that. The day center is the foundation of the village, and the day center is the foundation of homeless services in San Diego. I'd say it's also the soul of the village. That the day center is where we meet the clients that we most focus on. That's where we meet the clients that are most in need. And as I mentioned before, if some of us have been there before, have experienced trauma and other events, and so those are the clients where we really have a passion to work with, because above everything, it's just about being with people.
Yeah.
It's about being with people in that moment that might just seem silly to you, as Paul said, to be the person that somebody finally says hi to,
Mhm.
or just being there to that person that says, "I just don't walk away right now. Just come on back and let's fill out this paper so we can get you on this wait list for shelter or for recovery or for whatever it is." It's just being there with somebody in that one moment, that silly thing you might say that just makes somebody's day or changes their trajectory. And so that's what I think the day center does best.
So
I love
if
that.
there was a wish list, if you had a wish list, right, and you said, okay, the day center, what else would you like to do with the day center? Because you're seeing certain needs, right? What would you do with it?
Swimming pool would be number one.
Absolutely.
Absent of a swimming pool,
Absent of swimming
there's no
pool.
room for the swimming pool anyway. But
For me, it would be the number one thing would be to create a safe space for women. That we have some space at the day center that's a condemned shower area. We have an incredible shower area that's newly remodeled thanks to a lot of the work that Deacon you do with philanthropy.
we got it. We got it.
And getting grants that we have newly remodeled showers with bathrooms there, which they never had at the day center. We have bathrooms at the day center, but not in the shower area. That area could be used as a safe space for women. We could expand our bathroom for women and have a safe space for women at the day center. I'd also like to see us expand our recovery events. We have Are You Done Yet events, as Paul mentioned, and they change lives when they happen. And having a place also for people to go that need that lower barrier. I know we're working on some housing for people that are working, which is so needed right now, but also a place which we call a bounce shelter for people to spend a night that might be resistant to checking into a program.
Mhm,
So it's a
mhm.
place that somebody could stay overnight. And we know the best time to get somebody that's got alcohol and drug addiction is in the morning when they wake up. And it might not be a morning, it might be their morning. And so if we had a place, a cot that somebody could stay, every dawn for them would be a new hope. Because every time they wake up, we could be there saying, which door do you want to go out? One door goes into our usually our clinic to talk about detox, to talk about alcohol and drug recovery, or you could take that other door, which is usually half locked, and doesn't open as well, and that goes back to the street. And they could do that time after time after time, so they could have that hope every single time. And so that's something I think would be a great opportunity for us to have at the day center.
Wonderful. Deacon, work on that.
I'll work on it.
Yeah.
A lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's a wonderful way to wrap up this show. I thank you all three of you, so much for the blessings that you bring to the village every day and for truly being a beacon of hope at our Neil Good Day Center. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Yes.
I share my thanks. And to you, Maggie, as well. Thanks.
And thank you for joining in the conversation. Homelessness is a human story, and Father Joe's Villages is not just a service provider, we're a movement and a catalyst for change. Join us on our next episode as we bring more important issues and solutions to the table, because ultimately we're all united as neighbors helping neighbors. See you next time. How will you get involved? Join us and take action for our neighbors in need. Father Joe's Villages is rebuilding lives, and you can make a difference. Whether it's through cash donations, volunteering your time, contributing home goods or clothing, shopping at our thrift stores or online, or participating in planned giving, there are numerous ways to get involved. Take action today at neighbor.org, because together, we're all neighbors helping neighbors.